There's around 24 of these Honda Accord Aerodeck Mark IIIs left in the UK, and I'm about to take an angle grinder to this one. That's frankly a bit terrifying. I've never cut a car up before, never mind a rare one, so I'm really hoping I don't mess it up. My Honda Accord Aerodeck is its own worst enemy. It's such an all-round good egg, comfortable, practical, reliable workhorse of a car that it tends to get used for everything in all weathers and have to live outdoors. Now, most of the time it doesn't mind that and shrugs it off, but it has taken its toll on one part of it, which is the rear wheel arches. Well, there's two, so I suppose that's two parts of it, but they've both gone in the same places. They've started to show a bit of bubbling, which usually means if you can see something on the surface, then it's probably even worse underneath. I'm going to do this video in more than one part, so this is part one of at least two. So in this video I'm going to have an investigate and see what we can find, and starting the process of doing the metal fabrication to make new panels. I'm going to do this properly. This isn't going to be one of those ones that says how to do it without welding, how to make bits out of filler and fiberglass and bodge it together to see you through the next 6 weeks. I want to do a proper job on this. The car is a keeper, it's rare, it's also learning for me. So I haven't done car bodywork before, and so you're going to be following me as I make mistakes and hopefully have some successes and eventually get to what I hope will be a good place and a pretty good repair. I could have it done professionally, but as we'll see, I think it's been done professionally before and that's made things worse, so we're not going to go down that route. The first thing I have to do is remove these rubbing strips. These bits of trim are now unobtainable, and so of course I've got to be really careful not to damage them as I remove them. You can imagine how that inevitably went. Still, it's probably all repairable with some sort of Aerodeck or something, and mainly it's held on with a screw, so yeah. Anyway, removing it did indeed reveal more rust than was apparent from looking at what was on the surface. And the more I dug into it, the more I found. This rubber strip covers up the join between the inner wheel arch and the outer wheel arch, which don't appear to be attached to each other in any other way. There aren't any of the usual spot welds around the wheel arch lip. I'm not sure whether this is factory or whether it's because somebody's been there before and done some replacement work. Anyway, this is a moisture trap and much of the inner arch has disintegrated. There's a lot of crumbliness under here, and that's all going to have to come out and be replaced. For the outer arches, I managed to cheat. I found on eBay a matched pair of wheel arch repair panels in Germany and had those shipped over. For the inner arch though, I'm going to need to do some serious proper hardcore metal fabrication to make up any parts that I need. I don't need all of this repair panel. What I'm keen to avoid is putting in too big a repair panel. That means I have to take all the paint back off the whole of the rear wing here. That'll give me a really big painting job to do. What I'd like to do is to be able to just take the paint back on the actual wheel arch itself where it flares out, because that'll make it much easier for me to blend in the paint. Silver's a notoriously difficult colour to match, but the fall of light on the wheel arch will cover a multitude of sins when it comes to paint matching. So I'm going to cut a strip that I need out of the repair panel, and then I can put that up against the original panel on the car and use it as a template to mark round, and then I know what I need to cut out of the car. Terrifying. To have an aperture that the repair panel will fit exactly into, or exactly enough, and then hopefully it'll all weld up neatly. Here we are with the panel cut out of the car, and you can see the extent of the rust underneath, and the rust underneath is indeed extensive. But it's worse than that. It's not just a bit of rusty metal. Somebody's been here before and filled it up with lots of filler, and that's been a moisture trap and has made this a whole lot worse than it needed to be. There's a kind of triple skin thing going on here. There's this sort of middle, if you like, arch. I've removed the outer, and there's an inner which is has this lip on it. Not quite sure how that goes together, but it all needs to come out. All this bit where it's all crumbly and, you know, missing. I've got to remake all of that out of sheet steel. before I can do any serious metal bashing, I need to build myself a workbench. I'm too mean to go out and buy one, and I've got some bits hanging around so I can make it out of recycled, upcycled 4x2 timber that I appropriated from next door's extension when they knocked it down to build a new one, and a bit of old kitchen worktop left over from last time I redid that. So I cut it to length on my chop saw, which is a very handy way of being able to cut lengths of timber to the same length. It's a little bit rough and ready and kind of ghetto. I didn't bother making any proper joints this time. I just used some hardened Spax wood screws that are long and strong and pretty much up to the job, and just screwed it all together, clamped it up. There was a little bit of swearing involved in getting everything square, especially since the floors in the sheds aren't actually particularly level, and then screwed down the worktop on the top, and that worked pretty well and is a pretty solid base. It's heavy too, but that's kind of what you want in a metalworking bench, so I'm pretty happy with that. First things first, I'm going to get a piece of steel and put a fold in it, and then use the shrinker stretcher to put a curve in it so that it forms this inner wheel arch lip. I bought this metal folder, or sheet metal brake to us wannabe pros, from Metz Tools. It cost about £100, which is pretty good value. It's a 760mm one, which is 2'6" in old money. It's a solid thing, and overall I'm quite happy with it, although I think I can make it even better. What's happened here is that this metal bar has slid back as I've pulled up the folder, and these clamps haven't been strong enough to hold it exactly in position. So I've got a curved radiused bend, which is fine for this actually. I quite like to have more subtle curve in it for this particular job, but if I wanted something that was a nice sharp crease and a proper 90-degree fold in it, then that wouldn't do. So I think what I'm going to have to do with this folder is to fabricate an arrangement that goes across the top here and clamps this down more securely. It's gone quite evenly across the whole length of the sheet of metal, which is good, even with just having the clamps at either end. But I think to stop this sliding about, I'm going to need to figure out a way to make it more secure. But it'll do for this job, so I'm happy for the time being. This shrinker stretcher came from Metz Tools as well, and at about £120 is also quite good value for one of these. It does want fixing down a bit more permanently than this. They do supply a stand if you phone them up apparently, but I'm an online ordering sort of guy, so I just ordered the bare unit, and I'm holding it in this vise in a slightly ramshackle kind of way, but we do need a more permanent solution, I think, to stop it moving around quite so much. The point of the stretcher is literally to stretch the metal, which, because it's got a fold in it, will then put a curve onto that previously straight folded strip of steel. It takes a few passes, but it's really quite rewarding to see what started out life as a flat sheet of 1.2mm steel starting to look like a recognisable piece of car bodywork. I'm reasonably happy with how this is going. It's quite a good fit. It needs a little bit more attention to get it spot on, but we're certainly getting there. When I've completed the next part of this, I'll put a link down here. In the meantime, if you want to see more about the Honda Aerodeck and see it driving around, then there's a link here to a video about that. Do subscribe if you don't want to miss the next part. Meantime, thanks for watching.